setting aside the legal arguments, in hindsight, that kind of agreement is short-sighted by both parties. Again, I wasn't here in 1996 working for the Y or anything like that. I can tell you, though, picking it up on a dry run and looking at it, it simply makes no sense from a good policy perspective to say everyone is forever bound to these agreements. Jeff will concede, and I think he has conceded in his materials, that if the city wants to modify these agreements, the city can modify them. Again, there's a realization on my part that prior requests were not handled in the best fashion. I've tried to talk to a number of people who oppose it. That seems to be a continuing theme, is that people did not handle this well in the past and how they approached this. All I can do at this point, 3 years later, 15 years later, is apologize for that on behalf of the Y and ask you to look beyond the personalities and the history and look at the request and the need of the community, look at the request and the need of the Y. I have before you, community support is there. Here, a letter from Mr. Schmaltz is included in your packet, and a copy of a petition signed by almost 1,930 people, it says on the front here, in support of this proposal to the Y. I also have letters that have been written to me, have been written to the mayor, the city commission, many of you in support of this proposal. There's a package of those. Concerns, expanded growth. Hey, that's a legitimate concern, I understand that. But when you look at the facts, the Y's only expanded 4 times in almost 50 years. This will be the 4th expansion. Owners of the adjacent properties are supportive of what's going on today. As you're told during the staff presentation, the community, what the Y has done in that area so far, with the landscaping, the parking, the way that they handle themselves in the community, is likely a very large reason why there's continued growth, there's continued revitalization. The other thing I've heard is, well, the Y has become more corporate than community-oriented. I think when you really dig down into the facts, that's a personality-driven issue, quite frankly. I can't say that those are totally erroneous, but the Y's sole 100% mission is to support this community. So what's different now? What are we going to do with this pool? What are we going to do with these properties? Right now we pay almost $7,000 a year in residential property taxes on those properties. The Y is committed to put those funds for the next 10 years into the Katie Way Pool Fund, another initiative of the city to try to help make it a healthier place. That's almost $70,000, as I understand it from talking to different people about the Katie Way Pool project. That will probably be the difference in paying for the heating of that pool. New parking and pool and parking will enable us to provide, and we will provide, free swim lessons to every kindergarten and first grade student in the Winter Park schools. Vouchers will be given to them not to have one lesson and come try it out, but a full scope of the 4 to 6 week sessions that they have for children to teach them how to swim, so we don't pick up the paper every May like we do now and find some child that's gone through a pool fence somewhere and has drowned. Those lessons will be provided in the new kiddie pool in a way that they cannot be provided now. They'll also be provided at the Katie Way Pool. The Y will also hold quarterly community outreach luncheons for the community. And again, all of these terms, we're happy to enter into whatever agreement the city sees fit. Certainly the easement will be a recorded document, have much more strength than any developer's agreement, and should alleviate concerns about the future expansion. Jeff asked, what's the master plan? This is it. This is the master plan. This is the limits of where the Y can go on the property that they've owned and that they do own today. There is no further master plan for expansion. There is no further preliminary plan for expansion. There's no further plans for changes or anything else. The Y wants to add the zero-depth pool. The Y wants to add the additional parking in those areas where they are, landscape that area, and provide the city the easement that will alleviate the concerns about future expansion. Again, I can't emphasize enough the community issues. Recreation, health, family exercise, aquatherapy, things that can't be provided today in the pool at the Y because of the scope of use of that pool by its various users. Zero-entry pool offers ease of use. It's not just a kiddie pool. It is a pool that allows seniors, other people who may suffer from disabilities, to be able to get into the water and do the things that they want to do with the dignity that they deserve, not have to rely on the assistance of others to get in and out of the water, but to be able to do those things on their own and in a facility that's designed for them. Parking on board will alleviate the issue for parking not only for the members, but also for the staff that now has the park often in remote locations and causes some conflicts. There's no question about that. It'll alleviate further traffic pileups on Lakemont Avenue. People won't be circling around, searching for spaces. People won't be, well, I can't say they won't still be searching for spaces because we hope the facility is utilized as much as it can possibly be. We'll certainly diminish that. And it adds additional safety in the form of the swim lessons and the additional safety for those disabled members of our community and our seniors who need this type of pool to allow them to do what they want to do exercise-wise. Again, I think we have to make this decision based on the merits of the case, not on what may have happened in the past or some agreement that was entered 15 years ago. You read the minutes from those meetings, people said that Y wasn't a good neighbor. I mean, it's in the record. They understand that. It was an effort to enter into some sort of agreement to try to whip them into shape, I guess, is the way my mom would have put it. But the reality is, you can't set something down today and say that's the way it's always going to be in perpetuity. You look at the other places where we've had these perpetual development agreements. Okay? The Langford Hotel, there was supposed to be a JW Marriott there. It's in the development agreement. That had to be amended. When that didn't work out, the circumstances changed. I can go, and I think Jeff identified a number of these with Mr. Bellows' projects. There have been a number of development agreements. Those circumstances have changed over time, and those agreements had to be amended. While I don't think the agreement is effective, certainly if an amendment is the way that we want to go and add to the effectiveness of that agreement, I'm 100% on board with that, as I've expressed to everybody I've talked to, including Mr. Briggs. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Could you just summarize briefly how you would handle this agreement that we have in place right now?
The current developers agreement, I would set it aside. I would start with a new agreement. I would start with a new agreement under the new code and the way the code is based. As part of that agreement, Mr. Godfrey, I would include in that we are required to provide that easement, which doesn't then place it, doesn't put the city in what I think is kind of a box about trying to mandate that someone, other private entity, not purchase private properties. Okay? I would incorporate that easement into that development agreement. That easement would be recorded. That easement runs for 15 years. At the end of 15 years, this can be revisited. Okay? If the city thinks there's some issue that the easement needs to be continued, it'll be continued. It's as simple as that. The other terms of the agreement concerning the contribution of K-Way Pool Fund, the swimming lessons, community outreach luncheons, those are simple things to include in that agreement. I would think you'd want a new agreement under the new code that meets all the dictates of the code, spells out those things specifically, in addition to the zoning change and the conditional use changes, the conditional use permit that will be issued. I don't think you want to amend an agreement that's based on a 1995 version of the code and has a questionable existence. Recorded here. And remember, there's 3 terms of the agreement. If you looked at it, it's very simple. There'll be no further expansion of the building, and they won't buy adjacent properties. There's a couple other details that really are largely irrelevant. But past that, the only expansion of the building that has occurred in the face of the development agreement was in 2009 when the city approved the further expansion. The addition of the pool has nothing to do with the development agreement whatsoever. The parking itself has nothing to do with the development agreement. The question about the development agreement is, was it a violation of the development agreement to buy the 2 adjacent properties? If the development agreement is a valid, perpetual, never-ending type thing, yes, you have an argument that that was a violation if it passed constitutional muster on its restriction. However, if it is subject to the code 58.7, which puts a 10-year duration on all development agreements which deal with the comprehensive plan or the land development code, says so right in the statute, then that agreement expired in 1997 and there was no violation. But again, I don't want to get locked into the agreement, whether it's a violation of the agreement or not. I can't set aside the fact that, yes, why said they wouldn't buy those properties and later they did. My point is, there was good reason for them to buy them when they did.
Bud Oliver, 433 South Lakemont Avenue, Winter Park. Our agreement with the Winter Park Health Foundation started in 1999. When the hospital was sold, they spun off the Winter Park Health Foundation. They had all this money. They had 2 facilities. They had the facility in Oviedo, and then they had the one at up by the hospital, which was a Crosby Wellness Center. We entered operate those two facilities, they didn't wanna do it. So for $1 a year, we can operate those two facilities. We're responsible for all the maintenance, all the upkeep, if we're gonna do any renovation or anything like that in that facility. But we don't own Crosby or Oviedo. Those two are still owned by the Winter Park Health Plan. I know there was a lot of discussion around about capping and membership and things like that, but we're an all-Y membership. So if you are a member of the downtown Y, you can use our facility. If you're a member of Oviedo or St. Mary or any of those facilities, you're still a Y member here and can use our facility. Did I answer your question, sir?
I think so. Any further questions? No.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.